Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to be working on a vintage reel. This is a reel that was marketed under KMart. This is a KMart 3500, which by sizing means it was between a 3 and a 4,000 size reel, or a 30 and a 40 size reel. It's it's a medium duty, very versatile reel. Generally it was designed for freshwater streams, lakes and rivers. However, it could be used inshore for ocean fishing. And now with the advent of braid, which didn't exist when this reel was made, you can put more line on this reel and it can be used in more of a saltwater application. Just be aware, it's a Silver Series reel, popular at the time. This reel was made in Japan, like many others of the era, the Ryobis, the Pens, the Daiwas, and the like. Very strong reel, you'll see when we take this apart. And it features some of those classic features of the time, one of them being that you don't have an internal bail trip, but rather you have I call it a bang trip. As it comes over, it's going to bang the end of the reel seat here, and that's going to flip the bail back. This one's a little sticky as a bail, and we'll have to get underneath that and see what's going on there as well. Okay, I just want to show you how the reel is manufactured, how to service it, and talk a little bit about the reel in general as we progress through this. The first thing I would like to do is take off the exterior pieces. That includes the handle, which we're going to remove the through screw for. And when I take that handle off, I like to put the screw right back on there so I don't lose that. And then we can get underneath. We'll take the star adjuster off next. Remove the spool. We'll remove that click ratchet, which makes the noise when the spool is let out. It may require a little assist here. We'll get that from underneath. And we're going to remove the three screws in the side case. While I'm doing that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you like the art of fishing reel service and repair. If you like to learn about the reels, their histories, their manufacturers, and what makes them special, or what makes them, kind of ordinary reels, then I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. That will let you know when I'm posting, and you can decide whether that's a video that you would like to watch. So KMart was not a reel manufacturer. It was a reel retailer, much like you'll find today in Bass Pro or Cabela's or any of the sporting goods stores that carry store brand names. It was the same thing with KMart at the time. And there was a group of manufacturers in Japan that would make trade reels. Daiwa was one of them, Olympic was another, Compact was another, and so on. And when you do those trade reels, you pretty much just copy what you have as a brand name, just put somebody else's name on the back end of it, and that kind of enables you to sell more reels, which is going to reduce your cost overall. And if you reduce your costs, you make more money, right? So it's all about volume. That's what these folks were doing there. You want to remove the main gear. The main gear has a click ratchet on the back of it. You might be hard to see. So what you'd like to do here is pull that dog out so that you do not disrupt it on the way back in. And then you see we have a crosswind arm. We have the main gear. Want to get something to clean the grease out of that main gear. And on the back end we have the driver for your anti-reverse and your click ring. We'll show you how this all goes back together when we're done. There's no ball bearing on this side. There is a couple of shim washers which belong on the main gear, and the case acts as the bushing on both sides of the reel. Surprisingly, this is I think, a non-ball bearing reel. There may be one ball bearing up top here. We'll get to see that in just a moment. But overall, the reel is a very nice, well-made reel, and typical of what you would find at the time. I'm going to take a paper towel for a moment and do some cleaning on this one. And we're going to remove that rotor. We're going to find out what's going on with the bail spring. The rotor is held on by a screw, a nut. Should be a 12mm nut. I'm using a deep socket. When you find that you can't turn it this way, the normal counterclockwise to remove, try moving it in the opposite direction, because that is going to likely be a reverse threaded screw. All right, we've got that. We do have a ball bearing in this one, and this one is held in with a snap ring. So I'm going to go to my snap ring plier. See if this one works. The snap ring plier has the two studs at the end of it. With that snap ring removed, we can pull out the pinion gear and the ball bearing, and that essentially is the reel. There is what appears to be a small washer on the base here. Let's see if that is or not. Not certain. I think it's probably just a bearing seal from below. Okay, I rarely put grease onto bearings, but this one's an open bearing system. Looks like it's had grease on it before, so I'm just going to try and clean out the old grease and then probably re-grease, just because, well, that's the way it looks like it was done. I'm just going to let that sit and soak for a moment. More importantly, I have a concern. The bail spring appears to be not working on this one, and generally I do not service a bail spring unless it's not working, and in this case it appears that it's not working. To service that, we want to remove the nut cap that's holding the bail wire on. Let's see if I can find a small one, if I'm going to need to got lucky. So that is a 7mm nut cap on this one. It comes with a little lock washer underneath it. When you remove that wire, we're just going to flip that over to the side. You don't need to do anything with this side plate. There's nothing there, but I'm going to take this off just to get it out of the way while I try to service the spring. It's just kind of lessons learned on these, that it's easier to take it all off rather than try to dance around the pieces and parts. Okay, this has got a spring in it that likely is either broken or has become dismounted. And removing the little door here will show us the setup for this and what needs to be reset or replaced. You can remove the spring from that cavity, pull this down, and we can see that we have a kind of a traditional spring setup here, and it looks like it has come out of the carrier. So let's take the, trying to find my Phillips head screwdriver here. That's right in front of me. Silly me. All right. Remove the arm. I'll show you how to set this. It's fairly straightforward. Don't know why this was not set properly, but it came apart. You can see we have the tag end here. Very fortunate in that the spring has not been damaged. Let's take that spring out for a moment. There is a little bit of dirt in here, so we might as well take the opportunity to clean that. I'm going to use a cotton swab to do that. And then this is a spring that has two right angles. One faces down, one faces up. There's a small hole underneath the screw access point there, and there should be a corresponding small hole in the back of this arm, and it's right there. You might be able to see it or not. right there. So to reset this, find the tag end that faces out, put it in that hole, center it up, and just bring it over. Just like that. While holding that, you want to reinstall the screw that you took off. And you need to make sure this tightens all the way down. I suspect what happened is somehow on this, just checking it, somehow that became loosened. Just checking to see why that's loosening up. Kind of odd. Seems to be loosening up all by itself. Yeah. So there's something going on here with this. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think what we'll try to do is put a washer underneath this to see if that can't stop that from happening. I'll be right back with a washer. Okay, I've got a washer here. We'll see if that makes any difference. It is kind of odd. And I'm just going to put that washer right in between here. It almost looks like there is an inset here for a washer. Just going to lay the washer here. This might be too big. It might be trial and error. But we'll see what we can do here. Bring that washer in. My thinking is that the screw is getting too tight on that arm, and that it's kind of walking it away every time it moves back and forth. Yeah, I'm not seeing the head of the screw move now, so I think that washer's the answer. Yeah, it didn't loosen up in those days. So that's how your spring works then. It'll spring down, and when you hit that bump, it's going to force it back up. Okay, lessons learned. We can take our backing plate, add a little bit of dirt on it, bring that back in, slide that up to give you access to the screw hole. And when I take my pieces and parts off, they all go into a parts tray. That's why it's so easy for me to locate the pieces and parts as they go back in. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, maybe you're wondering about the competitive reels that I talked about earlier, the Ryobis and the Daiwas and the Shimanos and the Pens and the other ones that were made in the same era, then just leave them in the comment section. I will try to answer them for you. There's a whole host of debris on this side. It's a good thing we took that off. There's a whole bunch of dirt has accumulated where that arm has got to move. So in order to free that up, we're going to use a couple of different techniques here. We'll use that cotton swab. We'll use a little pick here to kind of clean out that channel. And we'll get that all grease and the like out of there before we reinstall. Next up, we want to grab the screw for the corner here. And then we'll attach the other side, and we know that we've pretty much solved the issue with the bail. Bring this back on. We have the lock nut and the little nut. Here's your lock washer. Here's your 7mm cap washer, or cap nut. And now we know we're going to feel tension on this and a flip on that once we start moving that. Okay, very good. All right, we've had this sitting for a while now. As I mentioned, I rarely repack bearings with grease because grease will hold dirt and debris. This is neither shielded nor sealed. It's got the open bearing construct to it. So I will repack this like I would repack an automotive axle bearing. I'm going to use fishing reel grease. I recommend you only use fishing reel grease. And I'm going to give it a pretty thick coating of it since it's the only bearing in the reel. Before you install your pinion gear, make sure that's clean. I'm going to use a hard bristle brush to pull through to make sure that all of the old greases are out of that. You can see it all coming out to my paper towel. And generally I will leave a paper towel on my desk as I work on the reels because that will enable me to stop the transfer of the old dirt that I'm knocking off from my board to the next reel that I'm working on. Okay. The case is clean. We'll bring the bearing back in. We want to reverse the snap ring now. And with those pins coming through, take the back end, seat that, compress, and then you can release once those are in the slots. And just make sure, push it down on both sides if you have any part that seems like it might be sticking up, but this one is in the grooves the way it should be, and that'll hold that bearing in there for a very long time to come. Bring your pinion gear back up, seat your rotor, put your lock washer on. When you're installing your lock washer, make sure it goes between the goal posts. Remember, this was a reverse thread on the nut, so you're going to tighten this by putting this on counterclockwise. Tighten it up as much by hand as you can, that way you don't risk cross-threading it. And tighten the rest down with your socket. Now this is a Mitchell tool. You don't need to use that. You have one, it's fine. Deep socket though, because you can't get a wrench over the lip of the ball here. All right, let's show you how to finish the rest of it. It's pretty straightforward. To install your carrier and your axle shaft, bring your axle shaft through the pinion gear. You can put a light coating of grease onto that. Bring that through. And then you're going to notice on this one, it's not a 90 degree. It's kind of like a 45 degree. That side faces out if you weren't paying attention to that earlier. Faces out so when it gets down to the bottom here, it doesn't bump into it. Find the flat side of your axle shaft. Take that block. Bring that in. When that bottoms out, that hole in the axle shaft should align with the hole in the carrier or the crosswind block. Okay. Next up, we want to take our main gear. We want to apply new grease to that. And a little bit onto the shaft. Next, take the axle shaft and bring that in. Seat that so that it lines up with your case. And we did put those shim washers on. We actually want to put our carrier on first. Kind of put those shim washers there as a placeholder so that we didn't lose them. Okay, bring your piece over. Pin goes into that carrier and through the hole in the axle shaft. So you got to make sure that that's fully seated in there. Push down or around, make sure that you seat that over the lip of your main gear. and bring those two shim washers over the top. I should have mentioned there is a spring. There's a V-spring in here. If you find a V-spring on your desk and don't know where it goes in that little cavity there. The two wide parts of that V-spring face out. All right, the last thing you want to do then is to seat your anti-reverse dog. Find the flat end. That flat end is going in here as you bring the case over. So eyeball it, bring it in and over. You may have to spin it to get it to stick, and now you've got it seated properly. There's 3 screws here that will tighten up on the case. And we'll pretty much be ready to give it a test. Well, again, if you like these videos, I want to encourage you to subscribe. If you know people that would enjoy these videos, I'd ask you to kind of pass along our channel information so that they have the opportunity to watch these. I work on all kinds of reels. Today we're working on a vintage mid-range versatile reel in the 3500 size. It can be used freshwater or saltwater. Other days I'll be working on freshwater only, low-profile bait casting reels, or I might be working on very large ocean trolling reels. It's all on what comes into my shop, and you have the advantage of working and looking over my shoulder as I do that service. All right, handle goes on next. That's a pretty substantial reel. So some people think that the store brands are not as good as the private brands. That's not true. And again, you can see a major manufacturer here has made pretty much the same reel that they would market under their own name. They only made it with the KMart name as the badge. Okay, one more thing to do before that test, and that is to take a look at the drag washers inside. Now usually if they're selling a reel through a retailer, they're expecting that you're going to see limited service on these reels. So the drag washers are usually a Teflon or a felt washer, because they assume that folks are not going to be servicing the reel. Let's see what we have in here. Okay, we have hard washers. We have a hard washer below, and we have a fabric washer in here. And this is what happens when you don't service them. The glue, the grease acts as a glue and adheres the washers to the metal plates. Use a utility knife carefully to separate the washers. Just drive a wedge between them. Like that. Got one more here. Just be careful, you don't want to cut the washer. These are hard washers. And then you want to get the debris off of that. Okay, you have the hard washer below, one of the 2 keyed washers. You have the hard washer in the center here. I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on that to prevent it from seizing against that metal again. And we have our eared washer goes in. Then we have this tension washer. It's a loop. It's not flat. Then the final washer goes up top. And then we can put that spring back in again. Be careful with that spring. It needs to go in the groove, just like that snap ring had to go in the groove. And if you miss the groove, it is a spring, it can shoot out. All right, let's put this back on. Take our star adjuster. And then we'll give it a try. So what did we do? Took the reel completely apart. We found out there was an issue with the bail spring. We showed you how to reset the bail spring. Best to remove the nut that's holding the wire on. Get the wire out of the way so you don't trip over it. It was a L-shaped spring with a coil in the center. We anchored one to the inside of the case, found the hole in the arm on the other side, reset that, found out that this was walking out because there was resistance. The screw was being held by this bail arm. So we improvised here and probably restored it to the way it should have been. We put a washer in there so that the washer rode with the bail arm. And now when you open it up, the screw does not turn. So we solved that issue and restored the screw function to it. And then we showed you the inside, how to set the gears, clean them up, reassemble it, put it back together again. Well, now that the reel is completed, you can see it just turns so nice and free and easy. What a great little reel. Check your drag washers, make sure that they're nice and tight. And then I recommend backing it off a turn or two so that you don't compress the washer and have it dry out over time and stuck like it was earlier. All right, the only thing else that's left to test, of course, is the bail. Let's bring the bail over. That trip's nice and free and easy now. Of course, that's a hard spot to put it in, but it will hit this post here, trip back. You can put a little oil onto the back end of this. We haven't done that. And you can also oil where that was, where it was loaded with grease. Work that in a couple of times, but now the reel is back doing what it should be doing. And actually, you can see we can load it up at a half turn or whatever, and it's just going to be a nice, easy trip all around. Well, that's it. That is an Olympic, they're the manufacturer, of the KMart 3500 freshwater and intermediate or inshore saltwater fishing reel, made in Japan, made approximately in the 1980s, and sold through Kmart. I hope you've enjoyed that. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, and everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. I want to thank you, the viewers, for watching. And, well, I want to wish everybody a great day on the water and fun fishing. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.